Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to Trail Talk. We are so glad you could join us today. I'm Edie, and we are live here at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center in Duncan, Oklahoma. We're in our classroom studio, one of our favorite locations. And today I'm very excited to introduce Katelyn Godfrey to you. That's right, isn't it, Katelyn?
Yes.
Godfrey? Yeah. Katelyn is here representing an organization called Beautiful Day, which we're going to talk about. But first, how about if we get to know Katelyn a little bit? So, Katelyn, are you from Duncan originally?
I'm not.
You are not. Okay.
I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. And I recently moved to Duncan. I actually moved here in January of 2020. We all know what happened right after that. But have loved my time in Duncan, and Beautiful Day is a big reason that I'm actually here.
So. Oh, really? So where did you move from? Because I mean, I know your mom. Yeah, her mom is Joan. I just went blank. Brock. I got a text from her earlier. Joan Brock from Link One. You guys might remember she was here a few months ago, and so chip off the old block, serving the community. That's awesome. So your family had moved here. Were you college age at the time they moved here?
Yes.
Okay.
So I grew up in Birmingham and went to school at Stanford University. It's a school there in Birmingham. And when I went to college, my parents actually moved to Ecuador, and they did mission work there for several years until they moved back to the big city of Empire. So my grandparents live in Empire, and I've had family here. My dad grew up and graduated from Empire. So I definitely have connections to the area, but I had never lived here before moving in January. So I graduated from Stanford. About that time, my parents moved back from Ecuador. They were in Empire. I met my husband working at a summer camp. And he was a Georgia boy. So we moved to Georgia, and that's where I was living for 2 years until I came to Duncan.
I see.
So yeah, we were looking in the area to try to get closer to my parents. My husband was also in the job market, and I was kind of looking around, and we were looking in the big markets, you know, like Dallas and Tulsa, Oklahoma City, wanting to get closer. And my mom actually sent me the job posting for Beautiful Day and just said, hey, I think that you would be great. I was an executive director for another nonprofit at the time. So I was already in the industry, so to speak. And of course, I got to meet Leah and Michelle, our founders, through that interview process, and fell in love with Beautiful Day and the mission and the people. And thank goodness I got the position and moved here to start working. Was closer to family and getting to do this incredible work.
Win-win. Right?
Oh,
win-win.
Win.
Yeah. And listen, I've talked to people from Beautiful Day because are you the first executive director? That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
So they needed that to create that position because of the growth of the organization. But we're probably getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. So let's start with Leah and Michelle, the two amazing women who started this. Tell us about the genesis of Beautiful Day.
Yes, I would love to.
Okay.
I never get tired of telling the story. Beautiful Day was started in 2013 right here in Duncan. For those of you who may have been living in the area at the time, you may remember that this community had gone through some really hard things that year in 2013. There had been several really violent acts that had happened in our community, one of them being the Chris Lane murder, and really things that rocked the community. Even not living here at the time, you know, I did have connections to this area, and I remember really, you know, just totally being rocked by that. And Leah and Michelle and a group of their friends.
Leah, tell their names.
Yeah, so Leah Miller and Michelle Johnson are two founders, and they them and several of their friends who many of them are still very involved in the organization, they were just kind of looking around thinking, what can we do? How can we serve our community better? A lot of that thought process was centered around how can we connect our youth, our children in our community better, because there's so many studies that show that children who feel connected to their communities, youth that feel connected, sometimes those things that were happening are a lot less likely to happen. So they start thinking about that, and
because those violent acts involved young people,
all of them actually,
students, school age.
It did, yeah.
People, yeah.
So there were kind of 3 that had happened in a span of time, and the common denominator in those, unfortunately, were that they were committed at the hands of young people. And so really, they talk about, it was almost like the rocks were crying out. And many people in the community, I'm sure, felt that same way of, can we do something? The story, it was kind of over a summer, things were getting back into school, and Leah Miller's daughter, her birthday was coming up, and there were kind of some crazy things that happened right at the beginning of school, and there was a moment where she thought she wasn't going to be able to go in and do the McDonald's Happy Meal and the cupcakes, and but miraculously she was able to get in the school, and kind of experiencing that simultaneously with the grief and that thought process of, what can we do? Kind of thinking about, if we would have seen those kids 10 minutes before they committed those acts, could we have stopped them? Or was the arrow really pulled all the way back? So all these different things are happening, and Leah and Michelle, just started saying, maybe this is it. Maybe we're supposed to, the same way that Leah was able to really celebrate her daughter in that way for her birthday. She talks about looking out in the cafeteria thinking, is every kid getting celebrated like this? What if this is it? And they emailed the superintendent at the time. Of course, that superintendent had a ton going on, as you can imagine, but loved the idea. And they pitched this idea to celebrate kids every month, or really just start with 1 month. But celebrate kids and really see them and connect people in the community with the children in our schools. And the superintendent said yes. So they started with 1 school in our community to kind of pilot the program. And it has just kept growing ever since.
And so the way that works, you say they go once a month. So they celebrate the birthdays of every child at that elementary school who had a birthday that month.
Yes.
And how do they celebrate with them?
Yes. So that we do every child in the grades that we're celebrating. So like in some of our bigger schools, we'll do like the 4th and 5th grade. But it's every student, no matter if it's a straight A student or a failing student, or, the only prerequisite is that you have a birthday. That's what we always say. But each month our volunteers wear our shirts, they get ready, and they go in once a month and sit at the birthday tables in the cafeteria. And we have a special pizza lunch for every birthday child. And volunteers get to sit with them and say, hey, happy birthday. Tell me about yourself. What have you been doing at school? Really engaging. And I think after the last 2 years, we all know how important that engagement is. Absolutely. And so really just seeing them, and kids say the funniest things. They want to tell you about their cat and their dog and their trampoline and all kinds of crazy stuff. But really seeing them, that's a huge piece of it. It's about the pizza. It's about the celebration. It's about that they remembered it was my birthday. It's about that, but it's also about that connection. And really that's the special part of it. That's the secret sauce, as I like to call it, is that connection. And the birthday students get a card that says the day you were born was a beautiful day.
Hence the name.
Yes. And they get a special bracelet. And at the end of the day, all of the classrooms, really whether they have a birthday student in there or not, all of the classrooms that are participating in the program get a sweet treat. So here in Duncan, that is cupcakes. And the thought behind that is at the table, they're celebrated by volunteers, by people who are coming into the school. But then in the afternoon, they're celebrated by their peers. And we really want to be able to foster that in the classroom. And so that happens every month. And for those summer birthdays, because it always comes up,
Right.
my daughter is a summer birthday, so this is very important to me. We do celebrate them. So July is celebrated in August, and then June is celebrated in May. And we really make it a point, even if a child is sick on their beautiful day, we get them on the next round. So that's a huge importance to us, that every child is experiencing that celebration.
And listen, those kids, I mean, they know about it. I'm a Link One mentor, and my little girl, she's like, oh, next week is my beautiful day thing. You can come with me if you want. She always invites me to come, but I mean, it's just, and everybody knows. But the cool thing about it is that all the kids who are eating at the regular tables don't have to look at that table with envy or sadness, because they know their beautiful day will come as well. I mean, it's just, it's a wonderful program. I love that so much. There's nothing more fun to me than for a little kid to get to go pass out cupcakes to all of their classmates, and everybody get to share in that together. And that is so wonderful. Yes. So what is it about the beautiful day thing why do you think that the superintendent was so eager to say yes? Why do you think it has grown, which we'll get to in a minute, but what is it about Beautiful Day?
Yeah, I think that the concept is really simple, right? And I think that when even sometimes, obviously we want kids to feel celebrated. And like I was talking about, the pizza is fun. What kid doesn't love pizza? What kid doesn't love a cupcake? But really, when it comes down to it, there's this special connection. There's this secret sauce of connecting people in our community, connecting our kids with them, and really allowing volunteers to sit at the table. And that connection, I think, like I said, I think obviously in 2013, we had no idea what 2020 was going to hold. We had no idea that the whole world was going to recognize, isolation can be hard. Not having interaction with other people, that can really take a toll on mental health, on all these different things. And so I think even in 2013, we recognized that need that kids need to be recognized, they need to be remembered, they need to be celebrated. I really think that the physical birthday party is incredible, right? But the really making sure that it's every single child, I think that's a big piece of it, because I think sometimes we often get the feedback of like, this is so great for kids that don't have a birthday at home. And I think that we've seen that our first year. We were so excited. I wasn't there, but they were so excited. And what did you do for your birthday? And we had a lot of kids that was their birthday party. And so now we train our volunteers that we don't talk about that. We don't talk about what you got for your birthday, what you did for your birthday. Instead, we just talk about, funny things like, if you could swim in a pool of anything, what would it be? Or just funny things that make kids laugh and connect with them that way. But, I think we knew that it was going to impact those kids that maybe don't have that at home. What I think that our volunteers really get to see when they're at the table, and what I think superintendents and principals know, is that it's good for everybody. It's good for kids that are super celebrated at home, that have the big birthday party. There is something special about a member of your community sitting down with you and beautiful daying you, so to speak. We see kids that even our board members' kids and our founders' kids that sit at a table and they get dressed up for their beautiful day, they're ready, and they leave the table different with a different posture
Mhm.
than when they sat down. And I really think that's something that's special about it, is that it impacts every single child, no matter what circumstances they're in. But then also what we've seen is it totally transforms the school. Principals and superintendents, the feedback we get from them for what it does for their teachers, what it does for their staff, and then we get to see what it does for volunteers too.
Right.
And I really think that that is a piece of it that until you're really involved in it, sometimes you might not realize. But really, we have seen it impact every person that is a part of the parties.
And if it's anything like working here, you know, we're the bright spot, we're the field trip, you know, it's a fun day. And I run into kids all the time, all over the place. I mean, in other communities, even when they come running up, they'll say, "Hey, do you remember me?"
Oh, yes.
And I'll say, "I bet you came to the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center, didn't you?" You know?
Oh, yes.
And so you know that those kids, when they see one of these adults in the community, they're like, "Oh, I know her.
Absolutely.
I know him."
Absolutely.
And they feel like they can just, you know, they have a connection that's beyond just the little things that they experience day after day after day.
For sure. I think we all have stories of being at Walmart in our beautiful day shirt or pumping gas, and a child will be like, "Hey, do you remember me? Do you remember?" And you know, and of course we do. Happy birthday to you know. So we all have those stories of that, of being in our shirt. And I'll never forget, one kid told me, "My wrestling coach came to my birthday party." And we have stories like that too, of, you know, just that special that somebody took the time out. Kids know that. I think maybe sometimes they may not fully realize it until they're adults. But kids really, they are so perceptive to when adults take the time to give them the attention that they crave. And we see that every single month, that things that we feel like, does that really matter? You know, do they really know? They sometimes can't put words to that. But kids' perceptiveness of seeing adults that care for them and that want to make them feel special, I mean, they get it. And so, yeah, I love going out in my beautiful day shirt. I feel like a celebrity.
Sure. Yeah, right? Movie star status. That's so wonderful. And so how many volunteers does it take to pull off, let's say Duncan, how many elementaries do you guys go to? All of the?
So we're in all of the elementary schools in Duncan.
And does that include pre-K?
It does not.
Okay.
It does not yet. But we are in all of the elementary schools, and we celebrate every student. So all of the grades in every
Kindergarten through
elementary
fifth.
school. Yes. And then we're also in almost every school in Stevens County, really. So it takes a lot of volunteers. And I would say that's a huge need that we always have. We have been celebrating. We really didn't stop in Duncan, even over the last 2 years. It may have looked a little bit different, but Beautiful Day was actually deemed an essential emotional support program, much like One True Light or Link One, which I really think speaks volumes to the impact it's having in the schools.
Right.
And it takes a lot of volunteers. So our goal is always to be one-to-one. So right now, I would say that doesn't always happen, but we always need volunteers at all of our locations. And it's a great volunteer opportunity, especially for people who either work full-time, and we have all ranges of people who don't work at all, people who work full-time. Come on your lunch break. You know, I think don't discount what that 20 minutes can do. It's an excellent volunteer opportunity for really a range of people. And during the parties, volunteers help pass out pizza. They set up the plates. It's set up just like a birthday party.
Yeah, sometimes I've seen balloons.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I mean, yeah, it's all out. all out.
We have balloons and pizza and the cards, so we need people to help set that up. So if you're more comfortable with like doing a task like that, we have roles for you. But then we need tons of people at the table. Like I said, our goal is really to have one volunteer to one student, or as close as that can be. And we set our table even really intentionally where we skip a space between each child so that there's room for volunteers to sit and interact. So it really takes hundreds of volunteers here in Duncan, and we are always actively looking for people to help.
So you said like basically every elementary school in Stevens County. So let's say Comanche has their own volunteers of Comanche adults.
Yes.
Empire
has
their own Empire adults. Bryan or whatever, those other towns, they all have supply their own volunteers.
Yeah.
So if you're watching and you're from a community outside of Duncan in Stevens County, and you're looking for just a little way to give some of your time, this would be a great way. Maybe you've been hesitant about becoming a volunteer for something. This sounds like a great way to kind of put your toe in the water and, just commit to a very short period of time. That's not every week even.
If you want to go every week here in Stevens County, we could probably put you to work, but it's their monthly parties, and there's no, of course we want people to be there as much as they can, but there's no expectation that you're even at every party all year long. Really, that's why we want to have a really big volunteer base, because it allows people to really serve when it's available to them. And on our website, we have a list of all of our schools. So we're all the way up to Canadian County, up in Yukon, we're over in Davis and Sulphur, we're in Jefferson County. And so if you are not from Duncan, we definitely have a lot of other places too. And, I think that not all of our schools were actually in the school through the entire last 2 years. And so there's definitely kind of a reigniting, a re-energizing that we're doing in all of our communities to get people back out and back serving. And, I think there's a lot of people that we've talked to that are starting to look at those opportunities, are really starting to think about, okay, I'm ready to get back out there. I'm ready to find ways to be involved. And really, this is a great way.
Yes, I would totally agree with that. So, how is it that Beautiful Day has been able to expand to these different counties, different communities? Yukon is 90 miles away, almost 80 miles.
I'm still kind of new to Oklahoma.
Yeah,
don't ask me geography.
It's like 85 or 90 miles from here. So, that's pretty far. How did Beautiful Day get up
That's
there?
a great question. So, I think it was all organic. It really was truly people who heard about from family members or people who were involved in our organization.
Oh, I do know some teachers who moved from Duncan to Yukon. I wonder if they carried that with them maybe.
Yukon, actually, that was, I'll start by saying this. At each of our sites, we have a liaison. So that liaison is truly the liaison between Beautiful Day and the school and the community. That was something that early on, we just recognized that if we're about connecting communities to the schools, it does no good for, volunteers from Duncan to drive up to Yukon and be in the schools, right? So like you talked about, exactly. It's all locally supported. So both through a lot of the funding comes from the community that it serves, and then the volunteers as well. But really that key person, that liaison, we even have a liaison for each of our Duncan schools. And it spread really organically. A lot of times if a liaison moves, they love it so much, or a principal, we've had that too, where a principal was at one school and moved to a different school, and, reached out to us and said, hey, can we bring this here? I saw the impact it had on my kids, saw the impact it had on my staff. How can we get this out here? So it's really kind of been an organic growth, and those liaisons are key to that. They are the ones that are recruiting volunteers, managing them, and then working with the school to do all of the different programs.
Wow. So you mentioned funding. I wanted us to get into that. How is Beautiful Day funded?
So we are funded primarily by individual donors and by organizations or companies that support us. We have 2 big fundraisers each year. And then our communities fund for all their direct costs themselves. So each of our communities does fundraising within their own community to help pay for what they need. And, you know, like I said, we're in all these different schools. We'll serve over 8,000 kids this year. And so that's the pizza and the cupcakes and the cards and
all of that
everything.
costs money.
Yeah, everything that we do costs money. Our Kindred Community Program that we also have, that's another initiative that we do specifically for widows in Stevens County. I think Jan is gonna
Yes, Jan
be
Palovic, you guys, in 2 weeks from today, Jan Palovic will be our guest to talk about Kindred Community. So
Yes.
Beautiful Day didn't just stop at elementary schools.
Oh,
They
no.
have other things that they're reaching out and touching, other lives they're
Yes,
reaching out and touching.
For sure. So, you know, there's all fundraising for that. There's
Mhm.
costs associated with that.
And then also the volunteers. These are adults mixing with children. How do you vet your
It's a
volunteers?
great question. So we do background check all of our volunteers, and there's a cost associated with that too.
Is
So
that
that's
true?
a big
That's
piece of
true, yeah.
fundraising
Yeah.
that, you know, you truly can't put a price on, but we do background check all of our volunteers and do a volunteer training over the summer. And so that is super important to us that we keep safety as a top priority. And then we also have some high school students that help. So we partner with specific clubs so that they have a sponsor that kind of does that vetting alongside us. And so Duncan Leadership here. Our high
Savannah
school
Bowers was
students,
actually
yes.
a guest on Trail Talk a few weeks back.
So some of those incredible students, they do so much good in our community. They are able to go, and it's really cool. Some of them are able to go back to their elementary schools and serve the kids.
And as cool as it
that are
is for an adult to sit down with you when you're an elementary kid, for a high school
Oh, yeah.
student to do
We're not
that,
nearly as cool.
adults are not even close to being as cool as a high school
Oh,
student.
no. Oh, no. Oh, no. So that has been really great to be able to involve them. And yeah, so we're just growing and we've got lots of good things going on.
So do you have other schools, other communities that are trying to, you know, grow a Beautiful Day program? Like what does it take to start one?
That's a great question. So right now we have a few that we're looking at for next year. And it's mostly inquiry based. And so, like I said, we make connections in a lot of different ways. Sometimes people see something on Facebook, and I would say most of what our connections are mostly people who have direct contact with the organization. So either, you know, their family member has children that go to a Beautiful Day school, or they are a teacher at another school and they've talked to other teachers. But really that first step is finding a liaison because that person is so important to be that link between kind of our home base here in Duncan and the community. Having that person in place is really, we don't really move to the next step until we have that. And so sometimes it takes a couple years from that very first inquiry that we get. We start the communication with them and we find the people first. Usually we like to have 2 liaisons to work as a team. And then from there, we start to kind of have a process that we do to obviously talk to the school, but also think about the community, start finding people who would be interested in supporting the program so that it can be successful. And sometimes that process takes about 8 months. And then other times it could take a year or 2 to get everything set up.
Right. Well, but I mean, at least, you know, you've gone through all of these steps and you have the good fortune of seeing what to do and what not to do in the 9 years that Beautiful
I know,
Day has
we're
been
10
going.
years next year. Can you
Yeah,
believe that?
wow, no, I can't. That amount of time that has allowed our local Beautiful
Mhm.
Day, the OG
Mhm.
Beautiful Day, to figure out, okay, this works,
For
this does
sure.
not work.
Yeah.
This is what it takes, and so that even though it's a time, it takes time, that means it's going to be done right
Absolutely.
on the front end so that it can prosper and continue.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we have a great process to set people up for success. And it's super fun, and the energy of starting a new school is great, but really the energy at all of our schools is great. So I think we have a great model and a great process. And, I don't think that when Leah and Michelle sat and talked on the phone in that parking lot that they ever dreamed it would be this big.
Mhm.
But really, they set such a solid foundation, and we set such a solid foundation here in Duncan that it has been able to grow super well.
And so, where do you see it growing to? I mean, do you guys have a vision?
We don't have a certain number or
Yeah.
anything like that, but I think it's always, long-term goal that we have successful programs all over Oklahoma and beyond. So obviously we, like every organization, had different things that happened during COVID that we had to work through. And so I think that really, like a lot of other people, we feel like we're on the other side of that. And we were able to still grow. We opened 5 new programs in the last 2 years. And so they are super successful, and, but I think that we're still growing in a way that we are super strong.
Mhm.
And I think that's the biggest thing for us, is that whenever we go into these schools, like you talked about, we set up a great foundation, and because birthdays happen every month.
That's
and
right.
They don't stop.
That's
so
exactly right.
we want to be there for all the birthdays.
And when I first thought about that, the way you guys, would go in and do things, because I've been with Link One pretty close to, not quite as long, it's not quite as old as Beautiful Day, but anyway, I was like, oh my goodness, how many kids is that? But honestly, it's not always an overwhelming number of students that, because it's the lunches that rotate through. And so the kids just go when it's their lunch period. It's just that, like you said, that 20 minutes of them coming in, getting their food, eating, and then they are off to the recess deal. So it's not like you're just overwhelmed with all these kids at once. Like if you had a giant birthday party for your own child,
Right.
And so it's very, it's like the volunteers are always smiling.
Absolutely.
They are sitting down, talking to the kids, not standing up, talking down to the kids. Yes. They are engaging, looking the kids in the eye. I mean, I can tell that there's the training, but there's also that thing in the volunteers that they understand why they're there. Absolutely. And that the person that they are there to be with is, I'm getting emotional, is a very important person.
Absolutely.
And every one of those children are equally important to those volunteers. And I mean, those are just observations I've made just kind of walking through the cafeteria when I happen to be there on the day. And it's, it's worthwhile, and it's meaningful, and anything that lasts this long, not being tweaked and upgraded and, just the same basic idea, that it has to be a good thing.
Absolutely.
And I just think it's awesome. And you guys, you have the greatest volunteers. There used to be a day that they would make these little cakes and deliver them to businesses, organizations, people in the community. And we used to always get a little cake
Oh,
here.
yeah.
I can't remember if that stopped because of COVID. Is that why that?
It did change
I thought,
with
yeah.
COVID. Last year we did the popcorn.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yep. And then this year we're doing it a little bit different. We're gonna, really the timing, we're gonna kind of focus on our people this spring and then kind of build momentum as we get going next year in August. I really feel like, like I talked about, we have seen this steadiness, right? Where you have to have good bones, you have to have good structure to be able to see that steadiness, especially through a global pandemic.
Exactly.
And so really, as we are all feeling like this cloud is starting to lift, we're all working towards finishing this year strong and then getting ready for August. And really just reigniting those volunteers. Like you said, we have the greatest volunteers in the whole world.
Yeah, they're really wonderful.
Yeah, and they're the secret,
people.
right? I think anybody can serve pizza. I mean, like I said, the pizza and all that, it's a part of it, right? It's a part of the full experience, but we have volunteers that really get it. And that even I think when people maybe are invited by a friend and they come see it because they think, oh, that would be fun, that'll be good. You leave that first party totally changed. It doesn't really matter what child you sit by, but we have seen just really magical moments of people, you can see it when they start to get it, right? Like maybe their friend just said, hey, I have this fun way to be involved, and they come and they sit at the table, and maybe they're going into it thinking, great, I'm gonna serve some pizza, it'll be fun. But it's more than that. And those liaisons that I talked about, everything that we try to strive for our kids at the table, we as an organization and our liaisons, we want our volunteers to feel that same way. Our mission definitely extends to the people who are involved as a volunteer, because you can't pour from an empty cup, that, I think we definitely see that. And we want a volunteer to feel the same way that a kid feels when you sit down, like you talked about, and crouch down, or hopefully there's a seat open so you don't hurt your knees. I always tend to do when I crouch and I can't get back up. But the same way that kid feels, we want a volunteer to feel like that when they walk into a beautiful day event. And we try really hard to make sure that happens. And we've seen incredible things happen from that.
Right. Oh, that is great. I tell you what, I think that it was a beautiful day when you came to Duncan to join Beautiful Day, Katelyn. I feel like you are such just a vibrant billboard, for the organization. What a great representative you are. Your passion is evident. And that's what it takes when, because those kinds of things trickle down, and so when your organization grows to where you have to have an office and you have to have an executive director, when you have to have those things because of growth, it becomes a little business-like. And so for it to be able to maintain its level of joy and giving and, focus on the purpose, then, that makes everything just keep going smoothly. And so I think that they definitely got the right person for the job. Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm in good company.
So you go volunteer?
I do when I'm able to. I was pregnant and just had a baby last year, so I had to miss more than I wanted to just to be safe with COVID, but I love nothing more. And you talk about kind of the business side, I think there's definitely a side of that in an organization this big. And I always say, when I feel like I've been looking at spreadsheets for too long, I always try to make it to a birthday party because, you're just like totally refilled with the why. And, you talked about, how has it stayed this long? It's keeping the main thing, and so sometimes I have to, run out to a party and get refilled and then get back to my spreadsheet.
Hang out with the kid for a while.
Absolutely.
Every time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have a board member that has a pretty heavy job. Her job is really hard. She has a heavy, emotionally hard job. And she talks about, that for her, when she's able to go and spend 30 minutes at the table and look into the eyes of our kids, our future, that it does wonders for her, just for her mental health, for her hope for the future. But I just encourage everybody to just really not discount what that 30 minutes can do, even if you need to just come by on your lunch break. And I promise, inevitably, we have a board member that talks about he'll put on a shirt in the morning, but kind of thinking like, oh, I'm not going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to get over there. There's always that hesitancy, but then they'll get over there and, has never regretted taking that time to just drive over, pick a school that's close to your work, and it can really be life-changing.
Absolutely. So while you were talking about that, I was thinking about making sure that everyone understands. So you guys are a 501c3, you're a nonprofit, and you are, so you run on funds, but you're also board driven. So another way community members could support you besides giving financially or volunteering for that would be to volunteer as a board member.
Yes.
Is that another thing that you guys would need?
Absolutely. So we have like board cycles, and so we have people rolling off and each year. And so definitely, if you're interested in being a board member, please reach out to us. We have a process the same way we do for our schools, and we have an incredible board. I think that we have a ton of passion on our board for our mission and what we're doing. And I think a lot of nonprofits have that. But I don't know, I've never seen it like this. I think that we have people that really, really care about our communities. And we're very, very fortunate that they're the ones that are they're making big decisions for the organization. So
do the other communities, do they form boards there as well? Or does the board here kind of govern the
board here governs the organization, and then we have some board members here, like so we only have one board, but we allow, or we're always actively looking for and currently have people from other communities. So for example, like we have a Chickasha liaison who also serves on our board. And so, we want to make sure we have those perspectives in our decision making, and we have advisory boards as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, we have committees that have opportunities for non-board members to be a part of. So even if there's a specific piece of the either nonprofit side or of our programs, so we have a Kindred Community Core team that Jan will talk about. So there's a lot of ways to be invested as a volunteer, but then, kind of that next level of investment in an organization.
Well, some people are just geared more toward working as a board member than they would be with kids.
Absolutely.
Not that they're weird, mean people or something. They don't like kids, but it's just more their place to serve on a board. And so I always like to make that known, that's an important role as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 501c3s, we have a heavy responsibility, financially and legally and all these different things. And I think what we've done really well is we've gathered some of the best minds that are really specialist in that field. And so if that's something that you have a special knowledge of, we're always looking for more people to add to that great base of people.
Right. Well, listen, I can't wait to see what Beautiful Day does in the next 10 years. I just think it's wonderful. I'm so glad you could come and be on Trail Talk with us today.
Thank you.
You guys taking the week off next week, not because of inclement weather or anything crazy like that. It's just spring break. Yay! And so we're going to take a little spring break here. But we'll be back the following week. And you guys, if you're interested in Beautiful Day, your website is
just beautifuldayfoundation.net. And I'll be sure to go add it to the comments.
We'll do that. Okay. We'll do that at beautifuldayfoundation.net. And you have a Facebook page.
We do. Yeah. Just Beautiful Day Foundation. And you can sign up to volunteer, see our chapters that we're in, and learn more about Kindred Community to get ready for when Jan comes.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, and Caitlin, when it's time for Trail Talk to be over, we always just say happy trails.
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
Right.
All right. Happy
Happy
trails.